Now I think we are now on YouTube. Let me introduce you, Professor. Then Mehmet will give you the right to share your screen, and you will also share your presentation. Değerli katılımcılar, kıymetli hocalarım, şimdi TÜBA Sürdürülebilir Kalkınma, Finans ve Çevre Çalışma Grubu'nun Döngüsel Ekonomi Sempozyumu'nun ikinci gün için bir aradayız. Bugün 5 akademik oturumda döngüsel ekonomi kavramının farklı veçeleriyle ele alacağız. Güne Profesör Doktor Tarık Han hocamızın açılış dersiyle başlayacağız. Önce hocamızı Türkçe ve İngilizce olarak tanıtacağım. Peşinden İngilizce tanıtarak sözü ona bırakacağım. Profesör Han şu anda İstanbul Sabahattin Zaim Üniversitesi İşletme ve Yönetim Bilimleri Fakültesi'nde öğretim üyesi. Özellikle etik, İslami finans, döngüsel ekonomi, etki yatırım ve sürdürülebilir kalkınma alanlarında lisans, yüksek lisans ve doktora programlarına katkı sunuyor. Aynı zamanda iklim değişikliğine yanıt olarak ekonomi yoluyla ekolojiyi iyileştirmeyi öngören döngüsel ekonomi alanındaki bir startup danışmanlık firmasında genel müdürü. Profesör Han'ın döngüsel ekonomi, sorumlu yatırım, bankacılık sigorta ilkeleri, sürdürülebilir kalkınma hedefleri, çevre, toplum ve yönetişim, Birleşmiş Milletler Kalkınma Programı, Birleşmiş Milletler Çevre Programı gibi konularda araştırmaları bulunmaktadır. Tarık Khan is currently a professor in the College of Business and Management at Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University. At ISU, he structures undergraduate, master's and PhD courses, especially in the emerging areas of ethical finance, circular economy, impact investment, and sustainable development. He is also the managing director of a startup consultancy firm in the circular economy space, healing ecology through economy as the response to climate change. Professor Han has researched on topics such as circular economy, responsible investment banking, insurance principles, sustainable development goals, environment, society and governance, United Nations Development Program, and United Nations Environment Program. Now, I would like to give the floor to Professor Khan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kukut. Thank you very much for inviting to this very important symposium. And I'm also thankful to TÜBA and the SDSN and my own university, Sabahattin Zaim University, for giving me this opportunity to speak on a topic which is so dear to me and in a forum which is so important. I can see that yesterday there were their excellencies, the ministers, and as well as one of the most prominent Professor Jeffrey was also speaking on the topic of circular economy. So I am sorry that my lecture may be a little bit more academic as a professor. So if I can share the presentation, that would be all right, inshallah, with you, isn't it?
Yes, you can share now. Okay.
Now
we can see your presentation now.
You can see my presentation now. So I have already sent to you, Professor Kurkut, my presentation, and if anybody is interested in it, you can really share it with professors and students as well as policymakers.
Okay,
but
inshallah.
In this lecture, I will only take some of the important points up, and as the theme of my lecture is, I'm trying to make a case for circular economy as a paradigm of sustainable development. You know, we are talking about sustainable development a lot, but by itself, it's not, sustainable development is not a paradigm. And if we do not adopt circular economy as a paradigm, it would be very difficult, rather impossible, to achieve sustainable development. So the starting point is to understand the current paradigm, which I tried to summarize it in a picture. And in this picture, the starting point is that, of course, we extract resources, we produce, we use, consume, and then we waste. So this is a linear. It's on one line, which starts with extraction and ends up with waste. And then the waste goes into atmosphere as smoke of waste burns. It goes to landfills, rivers, and seas. And as a result, we have the situation of pollution, climate change and disasters, destruction of ecosystem, entrance of toxic elements to food chain, waste of value, sanitation, water, health issues, poverty, uncertain future. And the pictures, I just collected them, which are talking about basically the social foundations, poverty, and issues of health, then the environmental issues. And actually, it has been calculated that 4 billion people live under $10 a day, 1.5 billion live under $2 a day. But on the other hand, estimated $6 trillion are wasted in reusable value of waste. So this picture, the one which I actually showed to you, has been beautifully summarized in a book which is called The Donut Economy by Kate Raworth. And here you can see that we have also pictured the environment into this equation. And then what it means is that inside the donut, which is about health, food, education, income, justice, gender equality, housing, network, this is the empty space. And in the current situation of the global economy, there's a lot of this empty space. And on the outer side of the donut, then we have the issues of climate and pollution, air pollution, biodiversity loss, land conversion, fresh water withdrawal, all those environmental issues, so the picture represents two important facts. One is what we call as the planetary boundaries, and the other one we call as the social foundation, and the desirable way of the safe space for the humanity is to be within the donut. And actually the current situation is that there is a shortfall as well as there is an shortfall of the social foundations and overshoot of the planetary boundaries. This idea, then we can explain it with statistical data. The data about Human Development Index, which is provided by the United Nations agencies, and on the other hand, the data about the ecological footprint, the data about what is the situation with respect to the environment is also provided by now emerging agencies. And if we picture these two, then this is the reality that higher HDI, higher development leads to higher ecological footprint, which is the situation is that more developed countries have more environmental problems. And ideally, we should have a situation in which when we have higher human development, the ecological footprint should be lower. So that is the conflict, which is actually the challenge of sustainable development. And further, if we look here, I just selected from the high HDI countries and from the low HDI countries. The high HDI countries is Luxembourg is one of the richest country, and Qatar and Australia, all of these countries. For Luxembourg, you can see that what this means is that if everybody in the world is living like an average person in Luxembourg, then we cannot rely on one world to provide the resources. We need 15.8 world to provide that type of resources. And on the other hand, the poor countries with the HDI is low, my own country like Pakistan is included in it, their actually ecological footprint is much more favorable. And then again, this is another measure of the ecological footprint, biocapacity of countries. You can see here again, the green means that the biocapacity of these countries is much more favorable, and the red means that there's a problem with these countries with respect to the biocapacity. You can see on the top of it is Singapore, which has no more space to put its landfills on and no more space to grow trees and others. So there's the biocapacity. Singapore, one of the most developed countries, but on the other hand is facing a problem with the biocapacity. So these things are now it is becoming more and more important. And here is one report which is coming out every year, the circularity gap report. And I just selected this picture from 2020 report. So what they're doing is that they're bringing these the two major indicators, the Human Development Index on one hand, and the ecological footprint on the other hand. And the center is the Earth. The countries which are closer to the center are doing better in terms of sustainable development. And you can see here, these are some small countries. Uruguay is one of them, and Sri Lanka is another one. And the developed countries would be outside, much in the border of this particular picture. So if we further analyze this, here is what we mean by sustainable development. This is one Earth. On one hand, we should not exceed the capacity of this Earth in terms of environment. And then there is the Human Development Index, which is 0.8 is the high Human Development Index. Turkey is very much closer to this one. And then the ideal situation for sustainable development will be to have high Human Development Index in the capacity of one world. And if we map these two, and we map the countries in terms of these two, then we can see here in the picture that these countries are having environmental problems. They are exceeding the 1 Earth capacity. Some of those countries will need not 1 Earth, but 6 to 7 Earth capacity to sustain their environmental situation. On the other hand, these countries here, these are lagging behind in the Human Development Index. So ideally, we should be at this particular point with high Human Development Index and with low footprint on the ecology, and that's the objective of sustainable development. So then the same picture can be presented in different ways. Here is another way of presenting it, which shows the same thing. And then here is another way of presenting, which is replica actually of the same thing. And the basic message behind it is that there's a problem with poverty, which is low human development. And there's a problem with environmental issues, which is the problem of the developed countries. So what we can do to get them together, now we are facing the pandemic, which is even making the situation more worse. On the economic side, everything has stopped. Governments have stopped, firms, financial institutions, households, all of these flow channels have been stopped by the pandemic. And the estimate by the World Bank is that in 2020, $9 trillion US, there is 11% of the global GDP was lost. And in 2021, $6 trillion US. That is another 8% of the global GDP will be lost. So basically, that means that we have, because of the pandemic, we have added another 300 million people to the poorest of the poor in the world. So that is the challenge of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Because of the pandemic, the poverty, extreme poverty has increased. So the main reason of this is actually explained by this scientific report. This is a report by scientists, which I am keeping here to be read because very important message is there. There is a single species that is responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic. That is us, which is the human beings. As with the climate and biodiversity crisis, recent pandemics are a direct consequence of human activity, particularly our global financial and economic systems, based on a limited paradigm that prizes economic growth at any cost. We have a small window of opportunity in overcoming the challenges of the current crisis to avoid sowing the seeds of future ones. So this is a report by a number of scientists jointly signed. So if this is the challenge, then we have to get back to our own religious values as well as science to present some solution. So when we look at the religious understanding of this, in the Holy Quran, there are verses. For example, this verse is about corruption has appeared throughout the land and the sea. And we have to face the consequences of that corruption because this corruption is our own human beings. So we have to recognize the problem. And then our relationship with earth, and Allah says that He brought us into being from the earth. So that's a relationship of earth being our mother, and we will go back to it. And then there is the verse which designates human being as the vicegerent of Allah, and the human being is vicegerent of Allah should avoid israf and tabzir. These are the wasteful human behavior which have been really strictly prohibited by the in the Quran. And then the beautiful Surah Ar-Rahman is talking about Mizan. And if we look at this from the current context of the idea of Mizan, then we can see it relates to internal equilibrium of creation, biological, nutritional, functional, etc., life-sustaining elements, capacity and environment of the planet, air, water, energy, rotational balance, etc., circularity of nature, water cycle, oxygen and carbon cycle, food cycle, photosynthesis, and demographic equilibrium and family life. If we look at science, now we as human beings have learned from nature, like we learned swimming from the fish, flying from the bird, computers from human brain, nanotechnology, etc. So science has learned from nature in a very tremendous way, and we are progressing on the front of science. But on the other hand, economics hasn't learned from science, from nature. Economics has went against nature. So why science serves and economics has failed to serve human being? Science is in harmony with nature, but economics is against nature because economics, the current economics which we have is based on waste, and nature doesn't waste. Nature doesn't waste. What is the proof with us? That's the water cycle, oxygen cycle, carbon cycle. And if we look at the water cycle, then scientists say that not a single drop of water has been wasted by nature over the 4 billion years of Earth. And the same is the case with oxygen cycle, and the same is the case with carbon cycle and marine food cycle. Nature, in context of the Earth, doesn't waste. So can we also have an economic system which is consistent with with nature, and which can have minimum or ideally zero waste? So that one is what we call as the circular economy paradigm, in which we extract and we design, we produce, we use, and then we try to minimize waste, and in the way that if there is any minimum waste, then we treat it and we make it a part of the ecosystem. So that's basically the idea of the circular economy. And then there are business models to implement the circular economy, which is, to start with, is the design of products, long life, non-toxic, cradle to cradle, cleaner production processes with zero emissions and zero waste, after sale service and repair, end of life recollection, reuse and recycling, relying on green energy, and sharing economy. These are the main business models of the circular economy. And then the advantages of the circular economy: eliminate waste, reduce resource dependency, that's the natural resources, because they are also limited, and now we have to reduce our dependency of natural resources, and this is possible through the circular economy. Reduce cost of natural resources, eliminate negative environmental impact, and then finally promote sustainable development. And if we look at the SDGs, these are also by their design circular, because we cannot eliminate poverty without also at the same time eliminating the environmental degradation. If water quality or air quality is not improving, only increasing the dollar amount of income will not help to achieve the sustainable development. So they are interrelated, and that these are translated into themes: people, prosperity, peace, partnership, and planet. And the summary of it is that the sustainable development in the center is not improving, only increasing the dollar amount of income will not help to achieve the sustainable development. So they are interrelated, and that these are... What happened? Sorry. Okay, so sustainability is in the center, which is what I mentioned before in the previous one, when we can have an alignment between our ecological footprint as well as the human development, then we can achieve the sustainability. But in a country like ours, in Turkey or in a Muslim country, to ensure policy certainty, we need to refer to the values of that society, which in Islamic economics and finance, we refer to as the maqasid al-sharia, and which are actually economy, religion, self, future generations, intellect. I added to it ecology and responsibility. And if we only take it as economy, then this will be the result of the linear economy, which the emphasis is on only material development. But when we look at all of these 7 elements, then we naturally get a circular economy. So that is the understanding. This is what is the basis of policy certainty. And in my humble understanding, the progress of Turkey over the last 25 years is because of this type of policy certainty. And to a very great extent, Malaysia is another example of understanding this policy certainty from a society's point of view. As far as the circular economy initiatives globally is concerned, of course, the European Commission, they have circular economy action plan, and then the OECD countries, and then each country has a circular plan, and then many of these countries, the cities have circular economy plans. And an example here is the OECD program on the circular economy in cities and regions that goes to municipalities have circular economy. Here at the last municipality-led circular economy case studies, many countries have those type of policies, both at the national level, at the regional level, at the international level, at the regional level, at the national level, at the municipality level, at the city level. Many countries, an increasing number of countries are having circular economy initiatives. And one of the latest initiatives is, I put it in the center, Zero Waste Master Plan by the Singapore government. So if we look at the famous European initiative to have a green and clean Europe, the initiative is called the European Green Deal. At the center of it is the circular economy. I put it in yellow, mobilizing industry for a clean and circular economy, which is the core of the European Green Deal. And then the very important initiative, what is known as the European EU taxonomy, which is a regulatory framework for implementing the European Green Deal. And again, in the center of it is the transition to a circular economy. Again, I put it in yellow here to emphasize it. So basically, what I'm saying is that there are initiatives on different levels to implement the circular economy, and which is the future. So what we need to do in our countries is to transition to circular economy should be a very important goal of the national strategic framework in the ISDB, Islamic Development Bank countries, including, for example, Turkey and Pakistan and Malaysia and other countries. We should have a national strategic framework for transition to circular economy. And this national strategic framework could have a number of elements which, just for the sake of clarity, zero waste, and I know that the Turkish presidency last year it has announced that there is a zero waste initiative in Turkey already, and there is many, like the European Green Deal and other international initiatives, the Paris Agreement, zero emissions, the focus of this is zero emissions, zero deforestation to preserve biodiversity, and in Islamic finance, we have zero riba, then greening finance, SDG alignment, Maqasid alignment, and of course, digital empowerment. This could be an element of any national strategic framework for transitioning to circular economy. So zero waste actually has a number of pillars. The first one is design, eco-friendly, long life, disassembly, reuse, recycle from the very beginning of a product. And there are, of course, increasing regulatory requirements in several countries that products should be eco-friendly, should have long life, should be able to be disassembled, reused, and recycled. So the design of the product must be in a way to eliminate waste. And then the second is the reuse, take back mechanism, repair, material reusability, take back. Instead of selling a computer, the computer manufacturer should take it back. Basically, there's the idea. And for all the other products, even tires, cars, and equipments, the reuse can be promoted by a take-back mechanism. And then CO2 reduction, going to different type of clean energy, recycle waste separation at origin, which Turkey has introduced, but many of the Muslim countries do not have waste separation at origin, and then there is a need for zero waste strategies, waste to wealth and well-being, at even going down to the municipality levels. We need that. And then there is technical nutrient classification, which is what we know nowadays, green tech. They're doing it, re-enter waste into the environment after proper treatment, and then sharing economy like Uber and Airbnb, for example. Then technology reduces waste in many different ways. Of course, the zero emissions is challenging. Both zero waste is challenging, but zero emissions is also challenging. Last week, Bill Gates has published a book which is very interesting, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, 2021. I took this from that book. So the emissions, this is the components of global emissions. 31% is coming from manufacturing, cement, iron. These are the actually industries in Turkey. 5% chemical, 4%, and then electricity 27%, agriculture 19%, transportation 16%, and heating and cooling 77%. This is challenging, but of course it is happening. The technology and green energy transition is, of course, the most important transformation which is taking place nowadays. We know about the green energy, solar energy, wind energy, geothermal energy, and wave energy. And there are a lot of initiatives coming up to promote technology. And here is, I am very much fond of finding a Turkish innovation. At the bottom here, I put traffic turbine, a Turkish innovation, and I would like to play it at the end of the lecture. From my point of view, that's how technology can really be useful in promoting green energy and reducing emissions. And of course, then finance is very central. And without greening finance, we cannot achieve the idea of the circular economy. And in context of Islamic finance, greening finance, is actually something which we haven't done much, but this is a future. And of course, in the lecture, we cannot give into detail of it, but here one of the things which I want to continue in the discussion in this lecture is a blended finance. Blended finance is extremely important from my point of view. It's a new innovation, because if we apply all those criteria of zero waste, zero emissions, then the cost of doing business is something which becomes very much relevant. Will not the nature-based, human, circular, and impactful business criteria increase the cost of doing business? And the answer is very much yes. And this is what is called by, in the Bill Gates book, this is what he is saying, the green premiums. So the green premiums is the cost of doing a clean business. And then, in my understanding, this is a shared responsibility. So if we have a purpose-driven, an example here is a micro, small, and medium enterprise, which is a purpose-driven, which believes in zero emissions, it believes in zero waste, then, and we know that the COVID-19 has devastated these micro, small, and medium enterprises. What we can do in Islamic finance to build the equity of such purpose-driven enterprises should be the focus of recovery from the COVID-19. And what I'm suggesting here, which is a new idea, I hope we can work on it in the future. We need to build massive equity and distress forbearance. So there's the shared responsibility is to have the Islamic social finance and Islamic banks work together to blend their resources, in which the Islamic social finance can pay the cost of finance on behalf of impactful SMEs. Islamic finance can then finance the impactful SMEs, and then this way, working together, they can be, Islamic finance can be very much instrumental in bringing out the small and micro, small, and medium enterprises from the COVID-19. And of course, it has a wider implication. And of course, this needs policy support from the regulators and the social finance and Islamic banks. They have to work together to implement this. And as I mentioned, that for policy certainty, this local aspirations of the society's values at the local level, everything is at the local level. Basically, schools are at the local level, streets are, families are at the local level, businesses are at the local level, emissions and waste is at the local level. So without considering the values of the people at the local level, policy certainty is not possible. And without having national targets of moving forward on this, again, is then policy certainty is not possible. And without considering the global goals, which are the SDGs, policy certainty is not possible. So an important effective policy framework will be to bring all these considerations together. So circular economy opportunities, the first thing I want to emphasize is national strategies. Countries have, as I mentioned, many developed countries have put in place, an increasing number of countries are putting in place national strategies to have a transition to circular economies. And then the role of curriculum and pedagogy is extremely important. These new ideas of doing business, responsibility issues have to be part of the curriculum at all levels. Research and development, entrepreneurship, greening financial services, sharing economy, blended finance, which are just very important one in context of Turkey, will be circular industrial policy, because over the years, industrial policy has been considered as, in the globalization context, not an important part of the government intervention, but for the new circular economy transition, circular industrial policy is extremely important. Technology and digital empowerment. So with that, I come to the conclusion, and my conclusion is that we have to have a new look at economics. Instead of looking at it studying the human behavior, which is selfish, we have to look at economics, the study and remediation of problems of economy and society within the planetary boundaries. So if we want to have that role for economics to be played, then probably it could be a good idea to even use a different spelling for economics and a different spelling for economists, to designate that this new breed of young leaders would have very special attributes, which is to conform to the planetary boundaries and do business in context of the planetary boundaries. Thank you. I hope I did not exceed too much of the time.
No, Professor, thank you. Professor Han is now in Canada. Due to time difference, it is quite late there. I would like to express our gratitude for his contribution to this symposium. Now we can take the questions from YouTube, or here you can write your question in chat, or directly you can take the word and ask directly. If not, I have a question for first question. Now you begin to live in Turkey. When you look at the circular economy, which action is the most easier for Turkey now when we can start it in financial aspect?
Well, I would say that the foremost important and the most easy one is to introduce circular economy in the curriculum at different levels. And especially, I understand universities can do it because universities are more empowered and autonomous. There is a need to introduce circular economy at different level, especially in the business, economics, and I would say that in all the industrial engineering courses. I don't know about what's there, but Turkey is very famous in industrial engineering education. Introducing the circular economy ideas into industrial engineering is extremely important. And the most important takeaway would be to consider to have a circular economy transition strategy for Turkey as a nation, and then it will go down to the level of the municipalities, which already exists in Turkey elements, but I don't know whether there's a strategy or not. In my understanding, I haven't seen a national strategy in Turkey. In Turkey, I understand Professor Jeffrey was also saying the same thing, that Turkey has a tremendous role, leadership role it has been playing, and we look towards Turkey because Turkey is very much connected with the European developments as a member of the OECD. And then countries like Pakistan always look towards Turkey, which could be extremely beneficial. And by the way, I want to share with you that one which I promised, that which is a Turkish innovation here. If you allow me, can I click here? This is the YouTube.
Yes.
Small YouTube. Do you want me to click it?
Yes, you can click.
Yeah, this is the Turkish. I liked it very much.
But I think you share the YouTube. Now,
Istanbul's crowded streets.
we cannot see the YouTube now.
Should be doing double time. He's created a vertical turbine that turns the wind created by passing buses into electricity.
The wind hits the wings and makes them turn. Mechanical energy is produced and becomes electric.
Professor, I think you have to share the YouTube page. Now we are on the presentation page. There's a choose while sharing the screen.
Oh, sorry. You want me to share that? I like it actually. If you have some time.
No, you can end the screen sharing, and when starting to again screen sharing, choose the YouTube link. Choose the YouTube page.
Okay. I don't know how I'm going to.
Now, while you again click the share screen, you can choose the YouTube link.
Did you put it off or not yet? This. Do you see the?
No, we are seeing now you.
Oh, no, it's a share screen. Yeah, okay. Let me see if the YouTube channel is there or not. Yeah, here it is. This is here.
Okay, now it is okay.
These buses are waiting to do what they always do: carry passengers along Istanbul's crowded streets. But one young engineer thinks these city buses should be doing double time. He's created a vertical turbine that turns the wind created by passing buses into electricity.
The wind hits the wings and makes them turn. Mechanical energy is produced and becomes electric energy via the alternator below. There is a battery under the turbine and we store the energy there. If it becomes productive, then we plan to build more, and we will evaluate how to use the electricity we produce.
He hopes in the future, each turbine will produce enough electricity to power a home.
Our target is to produce turbines that produce 1 kilowatt of energy per hour. It is a prototype right now, but it will not stay like this. Its structure and shape will change. If it runs for 6 hours, each turbine will provide enough electricity to light a house for a day.
With only the first phase of testing complete, he's still a long way off from making any money. But Devchi plans to continue improving the design's efficiency.
This locally produced wind turbine is a surprising source of renewable energy. And with low production costs and no shortage of cars or buses on the road, you may well see them popping up on a highway near you.
So,
okay, now.
Okay, so you asked me the question, what are the takeaway for Turkey? So I don't know about that technology, which is the possibility. I mean, the technology works or not, but the type of innovative mindset which the Turkish engineers have is what is highly important for not only for Turkey, but also for countries like Pakistan and other which look towards Turkey. This is one of the best examples of the circular economy possibility in eliminating emissions. Consider that that particular technology, which is in Istanbul, actually this young engineer is, and consider if it is properly implemented with the support of the government on the roads, and then the electricity is generated, and then the cars are electric, and then this energy which is generated there on the road goes to recharge the cars. Then obviously maybe in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years in the future, our children will have a